Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janai and this is Karmic Fixer Tarot. I think this is going to be a quick one. I just kind of wanted to get an energy about Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day, by the way, if you're in the US, celebrating the lives, the sacrifice, the legacy of our fallen military, service members. But yeah, I was going to do a quick reading on the energy of Memorial Day in the US. Particularly in light of everything that's going on now, particularly the war. I know that Memorial Day is typically one of those holidays here in the U.S. that just kind of, um, unless you're in the military, unless you're a part of the military system, a military family or whatnot, it might not have the same resonance to you as a holiday to commemorate our fallen soldiers. Um, to everybody else, it's the holiday that ushers in summer. It's barbecues, it's cookouts, hot dogs, all the stuff that people eat when you eat outside. Personally, today's just kind of a day off for me, but I don't have anything particularly planned. But I know a lot of people, Labor Day is the is opening game for summer. So I kind of was just curious though. There's a lot going on in the United States. Just kind of our feelings around the regime and just this is kind of a troubled time for us here. And I wonder, I'm just kind of curious if we're still celebrating, if this Memorial Day hits a little different for us because we're in the middle of a war of aggression. There's military members that have been sent off. And as far as we don't know the casualty count, even though I'm sure that, we've experienced casualties, loss of life. Not military. Media is not really keeping us abreast of that. Probably not in any truthful way, anyway. So that might be weighing on a lot of people here in the U.S., particularly military families who have people who are deployed in the region right now. And we don't necessarily know what's happening, what's going to happen, how this is going to play out in the future. I mean, I guess I hate to be a downer, but things like this are kind of always on my mind. And that's why I appreciate tarot. I can consult the cards, commune with spirit, and see what insights I can gain. So this is just kind of the energy around Memorial Day. This is going to be a basic 3-card spread. This would be maybe a daily spread that one might do, just kind of simple questions. In fact, I have like a cheat sheet on my wall. So if you see me looking upward, I'm kind of taking a look at the layout of the spread. Does it say 3-card spread? The first card will probably be the overall energy of the day. And as I'm framing my query to be overall energy around Labor Day in the United States, that'll be represented by the first card. Second card, what can I look forward to? Or maybe what can we as a nation look forward to? And third, what should we avoid during this time? I'm in Atlanta right now. And I think thunderstorms are rolling through. This is that time of year. So maybe a lot of us won't be as outside as we normally would be on Memorial Day. But that aside, done a little shuffle. I'm going to use my Thoth deck today. I haven't used that one in a while. So did a shuffle. I'm going to go ahead and pan down here. Okay. Let's see. So we'll do a cut. Okay. Great, Spirit. What is the overall energy of Memorial Day in the United States today? Right, so we've got our 3 cards. Adjust this a little more. Make this a little easier to see. And I'm hoping this will be a relatively quick sort of reading. And I don't always post my readings same day, but since this is very kind of time specific, I probably should. Okay, so we have our first card, which is overall energy of the day, and I guess overall energy in the United States. Second card is what to look forward to. Overall, again, what we can look forward to today. And third card, what we should avoid as a nation or as individuals making the most of today. So card one, we have the Prince of Cups in the Thoth deck. Overall energy, very sort of emotional energy, I think. Let's see. Yeah, I'd say this is a very sort of initiatory, emotional energy. Maybe a lot of us are, like I alluded to before, a lot of us are, this particular Memorial Day, maybe it hits a little different for us because the U.S. is at war, a war that we don't need to be at, frankly. This isn't the first time in American history we've been involved in military action that's unjustified, that's nebulous, that's just not something we need to have been engaged in. My mic is popping. I hope the audio is picking up okay. But yeah, so I think the overall energy of this card is maybe we are a little more emotional, a little more reflective. Maybe we're initiating more, just sort of being open with our emotions, around the significance of today. So that's what I think, based on the cards, our overall energy might be. Okay, next card. What we can look forward to as a nation. We have the Six of Swords, which is an interesting card. The key word at the bottom, science. Let me give a thought to this one. Let's see, Six of Swords. Now, swords represent mindset. We've got our cross in the center here. I'm not sure that's necessarily necessary. Yeah, it's a cross. I wonder if we can take that literally. But just kind of thinking about Six of Swords. Let's see. Now, this could be just kind of a journey, an energy that we're moving through. Today we can look forward to, if you think of the traditional, the traditional sort of interpretation of, I guess, the Rider-Waite Tarot, the first thing that comes to mind, you see a boat, you see people going on, a journey or whatnot. They're in the mindset of travel and moving forward. And, this card, even in the Rider-Waite Tarot, my first association is going on a journey. And a lot of times we'll associate a journey with physical travel, but that's probably not the case here, and definitely not the case with the Thoth Six of Swords. I think maybe a lot of us, one thing we can look forward to, again, this can be a very reflexive sort of time. We're thinking science. Maybe we're in the mindset of, let's see, let me kind of think about this for a second. The association of Memorial Day. If we're contemplating, let's see, this card really isn't speaking to me. At least I'm having trouble trying to see what the resonance of this card might be. So I might actually need to come back to this one. It's very interesting. If you have any ideas, of course, leave them in the comments rather. I'd love to see your thoughts on this card as, say, what we can look forward to as a nation. Maybe this is, maybe a lot of us are taking this opportunity to think about the mechanisms of war. Maybe a lot of us are taking this as an opportunity to be in the mindset of being more critically thinking of, our wars, the war machine, the military. There's always, of course, the appreciation of the men and women, the service members who put their bodies, their lives on the line in service to, we've always been told, in service to freedom, democracy, protecting America's interests abroad. And more, it seems more and more like these wars are more about protecting America's interests abroad. And by America's interests, maybe not necessarily your average American, but the Americans who wage war, maybe the, military industrial complex, things like that that don't necessarily benefit the American people. And when you think about military engagement over at least the past 20 years, it can be a little difficult to reconcile, to see where America has benefited. I mean, people in the military, people with military ties, military family, things like that, retired military, they might speak better to this than I can. But this might represent, just kind of examining our mindset when it comes to war, when it comes to military action. Maybe this is about being more introspective. I mean, science, I guess that can represent, I think that can represent thought. I think that can represent um, coming to different conclusions about something that we've always taken for granted. And again, while we can support the men and women who put themselves out there, who put themselves on the line, we can question the mechanisms behind it. Why are our service members being sent to fight in a war that our particular government hasn't given much justification for? Um, really addressing the mindset around war, around how it's waged. Let's see. And we have, and I'm learning the astrology. If I remember correctly, this is the symbol of Mercury. And Mercury is the planet of communication, of messaging. So who knows? Maybe this is about how war is messaged in this country and how the American people, I think more and more, are questioning this, especially in this time where we are engaged in a war that I dare say the majority of Americans don't want us to be on. In fact, the mindset for why we are currently under this particular regime, why so many Americans actually voted for this particular regime, was based on the promises that, you know, our current president made about no more foreign wars. Now, we can argue whether or not it was reasonable to trust someone like our president, the guy who's in the Oval Office right now. I hate to say our president, but, that is what it is. Um, we can question, the wisdom in trusting someone like that when they say that they're not going to engage in foreign wars, more forever wars. And then we find that that's exactly what's happening. And there's no reasonable explanation or justification. In fact, this particular person, this particular president, bypassed Congress to engage in this conflict. So I think this card represents one thing we can look forward to, maybe more Americans being more critical of the war machine, of the machine of empire, especially when we see that it doesn't benefit us in the way that we've been, I dare say, propagandized to believe all these years. And it certainly doesn't benefit the people abroad. When you think about um, the actual warfare that's been engaged in Iran, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is the school where I think roughly 160, 170 school children killed in a war that did not need to be taking place. So I think a lot of Americans, and I think that's what this card represents, we're wrapping our minds around war in a different way. And we're questioning the mechanisms behind it. We're questioning the science behind it. We're being more critically thinking of it. So I guess that's what this card represents here. And again, I think that's Mercury. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. And yeah. All right, so the last card, what should we avoid as a nation? So let's see. Wands, swiftness. Um, this is the Eight of Wands in the Thoth deck. And the Eight of Wands generally represents momentum. It represents just, rashness. Sometimes keeping up momentum and building momentum is good. But a lot of times, if you are swept away by momentum, by the way things are playing out, you get swept to a place that you didn't think you were going to go, a place you had no intentions of going. And one thing I think this card represents avoiding getting, staying in mindsets that are reactive. Maybe this card represents just not being super reactive. Maybe we'll be getting together with family today. Maybe there are hard feelings. This has been a really interesting and really kind of divisive time for families. Particularly the divide along political lines and things like that. and maybe we're getting together with people, and we are going to be in contact with folks that we disagree with. Maybe we have fundamental disagreements, or maybe we have genuine friction with. And again, I guess this is Mercury again. Um, and, that is a symbol of communication. Maybe we need to be careful how we communicate with each other today. Either set aside some certain things, if we're going to be in fellowship with family, or friends or colleagues, if we have to go to work. And a lot of us have to work on these holidays. I remember when I used to work in a call center, and every holiday, I'm in for work. So I guess me personally, the holidays hit a little different. It's not really, it doesn't really feel like a holiday if you still are on the hamster wheel. But anyway, this card for people who are going to be in, I guess it's anybody who's going to be in fellowship with other people, whether that's leisure or whether that's work, or any other obligations. Maybe this card is a reminder for us to, and I think this is a good reminder in any given time, to have some tact, or you can be honest without being divisive, or if there's certain conversations that you just don't want to engage with. I think that's what this card represents. This card is a card of momentum, swiftness. The sword, not swords, the wands suit, suit of passion, creativity, just expressiveness. And so maybe with this card being in the what should I what should we avoid, maybe being a bit more tempered about what we say, maybe not being so quick to react or so quick to spout off. Or if we find ourselves in a situation where people are being highly reactive, maybe today would be a good day to remove ourselves from that, or to put up boundaries against that sort of thing. Let's see. So, yeah, I think that's what this card represents in the what we should avoid. Um, Maybe be a little more, tactful, a little more responsive instead of reactive. Someone can say something that maybe we don't quite vibe with, react instead of maybe knee jerk response. Well, that's just kind of my take from this one here. And so this is a relatively um, short reading, but I always do like to do a bottom of the deck card just to get an overview, kind of like a throughput card, maybe of the underlying theme of the query, or the underlying theme of Spirit's answer to the query. So, bottom of the deck card, we have our Four of Pentacles. Let's see. Or in the Thoth deck, that's Four of Discs. And this represents, our keyword here being power. I guess the overall throughput of this particular spread, and we have our power, we have our Four of Discs, that tends to represent balance. Today is a day that it's a holiday in the US. So if we're afforded the opportunity to take the time off, um, you could you could interpret power as a way of maybe just sort of taking the time to recharge, maybe the time to empower yourself, to maybe have a day of relaxation, maybe a day that will be really fulfilling. Um, there's a lot that's made of how divisive things feel in the US right now. But this can be an opportunity to buck against that. Maybe we don't have to be divided on this particular day. Maybe we can take the opportunity, empower ourselves to come together, um, and just have a great time while we can. And four, numerology of four tends to be about stability. Maybe today can be a day for stabilizing. Maybe today can be a day for, enriching ourselves. Maybe today can be a day of reconciliation, empowering ourselves to commemorate, Memorial Day, respect for our fallen service members, past, present. But also, this can be a day that we take the initiative to, to try and mend fences, to try and come together for something common and enjoyable. And let's see, we have the symbolism here. Um, I'm still working on the symbolism. I think what I'll do, I might still do a write up of this that might come out maybe a little after Memorial Day. Um, but but yeah, this will give me a little more time to mull over this particular reading, and yeah, maybe give a fuller interpretation of this reading. But yeah, that's kind of what I have here on my overall spread of the overall energy of Memorial Day today here in the United States. I hope this reading resonated with you. I hope you were able to get some insights out of it. If you have a different takeaway from what came to me in this reading, please feel free to put it in the comment section. And thank you so much for watching. And until next time, this is Karmic Fixer Tarot with Janai, and I'll see you again.